As if we didn't already have enough stuff to talk about, the first full week of National Championships season wrapped up this past weekend, and we have our results. The results are in, and I have to issue a bit of a retraction from last weekend's video. See, I thought that Phi was going to be that deck that people picked up and that picked up a bunch of points. I expected Phi to gobble up a good number of points and put himself in position to perhaps rotate at the end of this Nationals season. And, well, one thing has become painfully clear. That is not looking like the case, because here is the results from week 1 of this national championship season. Of course, we call it week 1 even though US National Championships was 2 weeks ago. It is sort of the kickoff to this season, this mini season. But at the top of the list sit two heroes. Victor Goldmane, the hero we all expected, the hero that is getting dangerously close to rotating in this national season and may just make his way out over the next 2 weeks as Nationals wraps up. But then right next to him is Oscilio. Oscilio, specifically Constella Intelligence, and we do have to put a caveat on that because there are, of course, now 2 Oscilios, and this is one we're going to talk about on a much deeper level as we look at a few deck lists, because this list does not look like what you would expect an old school Oscilio to play like. This is the new hotness, the new build of Oscilio, and I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of toxic and I kind of love it. But then again, I am a Wizard stan through and through. Besides those two taking 2 total wins over the weekend, we had someone win on Tekla Vossen, which is crazy. We had Dash.io pick up a win. Ira Scarlet Revenger, I believe, won in Japan. And no, actually scratch that. Ira won in Bulgaria. It says right there. Why didn't I just read the screen? This is why we do these things. And then Syndra, this was the standout to me. Of course, all of these results are exciting, and congratulations to all of the winners. And I watched a good chunk of these that were streamed, including the Singapore National Championships, Japan, New Zealand. I watched as many as I could find, and for as long as I could. Syndra was the exciting change of pace because I, like I said, expected Phi to be the ninja that rose up and people played and ended up converting, and unfortunately that is not the case, unless it is fortunate for you, in which case, like, you're really excited that he didn't gobble up more points and got closer to winning. But here are the standings for the Living Legend leaderboard. Prism has not moved an inch and may not move an inch while Victor Goldmane is still around. Though I will say this, there were several Prisms that were put on stream on a variety of these tournaments, and Prism was looking pretty hot. Prism was looking good. Unfortunately, I feel like Prism just doesn't really do much while Victor Goldmane is still in the metagame. And Victor here did indeed gobble up 53 points. Now, I think some of those points might have been earned prior to this, because if Victor Goldmane won 2 events, and in fact I can go back to the screen and we can see exactly where he won: New Zealand and Vietnam. And I don't know the personal caps on these, but remember, all of these national championships have variable cap numbers and variable points that pay out for those heroes. So it could be that, like these 2 events were both 25-point getters, and that's how he got 50 points. But keep in mind, this is also counting all of the other types of events, and that is why we see Kasai of the Golden Sands with 15 points, because Kasai picked up in Australia a Battlegrounds win. This was a fun one to watch as well. Jake McCormick picked up a win on Kasai in his standard, classic, aggressive Kasai heavy draw swords list. It's pretty exciting, but look at this number. Syndra wins 25 points, and she has the capacity to pass up Phi Rising Rebellion. And Phi might just be sitting on the sideline yet again, watching another ninja walk on by him. Well, or I guess I should say watching a ninja walk on by him, but another hero walk on by him. This is the really interesting part about this national season. There's still a lot of points to give out in this space. And there's a chance that if Syndra does become popular again as sort of an answer to some of these other decks that can't block relatively well, particularly someone like Oscilio, though this new version of Oscilio does block better, maybe Syndra gets enough points to pass up and make her way towards the top here. But I thought we might have upwards of 2 to 3 heroes rotate. At this point, it's looking like it may just be Victor, and then there could be some like point spreads across Dio and Syndra, and I might be really sad to see Kasai gobble up more points. Fi may still get a point or two, and Prism also may still get a point or two. The real question is, at this point, what are we going to be seeing over these next 2 weeks? Victor may be the only hero rotating before, we get more information going into Pro Tour and like more points being spread out across Pro Tour, the event itself. But remember, you can't even get calling points because the calling is going at Pro Tour is going to be draft. It's going to be like sealed and draft. And so there's going to be no points given out there. The showdown is going to be Silver Age, so you're not going to have points there. So these heroes, if they don't get it done in this season right here in National season, they're not really going to be, pushing on that doorstep to get through to the Living Legend side of things, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Just a reminder, you have next weekend, this one that's upcoming, and then we also have one more weekend. And these, by the way, I do believe these point totals can be broken down here. We did see Japan already go. We saw, we saw, who else did we see? Trying to check these things off. We saw Singapore go. New Zealand went up to 128, which means if we go back to this page, you can see the 128 cap in that area right there would give indeed 25 points, which is why we saw Victor go up that much. But with 48 total national championships, we still have a lot of points to give out, and a large chunk of them right here are still ready to be conducted and passed out. So we still have, if these hit cap, 25 points each. So maybe there is a world where we don't just have Victor and we get a Fi that wins a couple and a Kasai that wins a couple and a Syndra maybe even that wins a couple. Maybe Prism somehow sneaks out there and picks up a couple. But man, it's looking far less likely that we have a ton of heroes rotate, and far more likely that this meta just gobbles up points across the board rather than within just one kind of frame of reference. I didn't even talk about Gravy Bones, but Gravy Bones sitting on 60 points thanks in part to the US National Championship win. As you can see, is worth 50 points there. And finally, I talked about it at the Open, but this is what Oscilio looks like now. And this is a build of Oscilio that someone like whispered into my ear at a locals a couple of weeks ago. And it is the 9 Aether Flare version of this deck. For those that don't know, Aether Flare is so good it was banned in Blitz. It's currently banned in Silver Age. It is not banned in CC, and therefore we can try to abuse it. And in doing so, we might find some success because Aether Flare allows you to pass on the damage that it deals to the next effect that will deal damage. The next card you play this turn with an effect that deals arcane damage will gain that damage dealt by Aether Flare. So if you send this for 3 and it is just full taken from like a Syndra opponent, for example, then you can, off of a blue, play Flash Bolt. And in doing so, it will come in not just for 3, but it could come in for upwards of 6. If you staffed, then maybe 7. But you can continue doing this and you can get some crazy lines. For example, you can, there's the Aether Bindings of the Third Age. You can pop Aether Bindings at the start of your turn and pop a bunch of these Sigil of Fate tokens off of future sites that you set up. And you can then amp the Aether Flare to have it pass on its damage to anything like Flash Bolt or Snapback. You can do Strike Twice is really good as well. The fact that this deck has essentially like 11 copies of instant speed damage, this just needs you to have dealt arcane damage on the opposing hero's turn, and you can play it as an instant. This one needs you to have played a wizard non-attack action card, of which this is. This one deals damage at instant speed, so you can literally, if you have it in your hand, you can go Flash Bolt, Strike Twice, Snapback. You can pop the Storm Striders, which is now the boots of choice. I would say, over most other options. You can pop Storm Striders, and you can send Aether Flare buffed up, or just straight up Aether Flare when your opponent taps out, and that triggers Snapback's effect. There's a lot of crazy plays that this deck does, and this is looking to be one of those types of decks that people are going to have to start respecting with their sideboard. If they're not bringing Arcane Barrier, this is one that can get to the finish line relatively quickly, and it's one that I'm really excited to see because I love Oscilio. I think he's so cool looking, and I always wanted him to be like a pure big damage arcane wizard, big stack spells, bringing like down the thunder. And that's kind of what we're getting thanks to Aether Flare. So 1 week down, of course, there's going to be more results this weekend, and I'm really excited to see what ends up happening because some crazy things can happen in Nationals across the world. This is a global game, and you never know what national champion is going to make their mark by sending a hero to the living legend status. So follow along here if you want to watch and find out who sends what hero where and how many points they're going to get next week. If you like this type of stuff, make the number go to the other number. And as always, everybody, thanks for watching.